The mockery of peace. The Galactic Assembly Hall on Station Equilibrium floated silently in the void between three star systems, a testament to cooperation among the stars. Representatives from 62 species gathered in the vast spherical chamber, each section carefully engineered to accommodate different atmospheric requirements and gravitational preferences. Some delegates breathed nitrogen, others required high-pressure water tanks, and a few existed as energy beings contained within specialized fields. Despite these vast differences, they had maintained relative peace for 3 millennia. Ambassador Sarah Mitchell sat in the human delegation box, her weathered face calm despite the tension filling the chamber. At 58 years old, she had spent the last 20 representing humanity in these halls. Her assistant, Lieutenant Commander James Torres, stood beside her, his military uniform pristine but seemingly decorative compared to the battle armor worn by other species' military attachés. The Carathian High Commander Vextor dominated the center platform. Standing 4 meters tall on 6 insectoid legs, his chitin armor gleamed under the assembly lights. His compound eyes reflected thousands of tiny images of the gathered delegates as he spoke through his translator node. The frontier sectors beyond the Helix Nebula belong to the strong. For too long, the Carathian Empire has tolerated the weakness of species who claim territory they cannot defend. We have decided to rectify this situation. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. The Carathians were known for their aggressive expansion, but they usually followed the established protocols of ritualized warfare. Fleet demonstrations, champion battles, and negotiated surrenders were the norm. This sounded different. The ethereal Zalathi representative pulsed with concerned colors. High Commander, the Assembly has procedures for territorial disputes. The Charter of Stars clearly states that inhabited systems cannot be claimed through force alone. Vextor's mandibles clicked in what humans might recognize as laughter. The charter was written by species who fear true conflict. The Carathians have studied war for 10,000 cycles. We have conquered 40 systems through proper combat. We know strength. He turned his massive head toward the human section. Unlike some species who cower behind words and committees, Sarah activated her microphone with measured calm. Humanity believes that strength comes in many forms, High Commander. The ability to build rather than destroy, to unite rather than conquer, these two require power. The Carathian's translator buzzed with amusement. Tell me, Ambassador Mitchell, how many warships does Earth command? How many battle fleets patrol your borders? Our intelligence suggests fewer than 300 vessels, most of them converted cargo haulers with minimal armament. The Saurian delegate actually laughed, a harsh barking sound. Even the peaceful Murtok maintain 1,000 ships. Sarah's expression remained neutral. We have found that a smaller defensive fleet serves our needs. We prefer to invest in education, infrastructure, and scientific advancement. Vextor's 6 legs clicked against the metal platform as he moved closer to the human section. You prefer these things because you are prey species masquerading as predators. Your history shows this clearly. You took 200 cycles just to achieve faster-than-light travel after your first space flights. Most species accomplish this in 50. You speak of peace because you lack the strength for war. The chamber fell silent. Such direct insults were rare in the assembly, but several delegates seemed to agree with the assessment. Humanity's military weakness had become something of an open secret. They contributed scientists, diplomats, and cultural exports to the galactic community, but never warriors. Torres shifted beside Sarah, his jaw clenched. She placed a gentle hand on his arm before responding. Perhaps you're right, High Commander. Perhaps we are not warriors in the traditional sense, but we have learned from our history that true victory comes not from winning wars, but from preventing them entirely. More clicking laughter echoed through the chamber, this time from multiple Carathian delegates. Prevention. Vextor said the word like it tasted sour. You prevent nothing. You simply hope that true warriors will ignore you while you hide behind your treaties and conventions. But hope is not a strategy. The High Commander turned to address the entire assembly. The Carathian Empire claims the 12 systems beyond the Helix Nebula, including Haven Prime. Any species currently inhabiting these worlds has 30 standard rotations to evacuate. After that, we will take what is ours. Haven Prime housed 15 million souls from various species, including 3 million humans. It was an agricultural world, peaceful and productive, protected by nothing more than the assumption that civilized species didn't attack farming colonies. The Murtaugh ambassador's feathers ruffled in agitation. This is unprecedented. Haven Prime has been recognized as neutral territory for 800 cycles. The food it produces feeds a dozen worlds. Then those dozen worlds should have defended it better. Vextor replied. The strong take from the weak. This is the fundamental law of the universe. You have all grown soft, hiding behind your rules and procedures. The Carathians will remind you what strength truly means. Sarah stood slowly, her voice carrying across the chamber despite its soft tone. High Commander, I urge you to reconsider. Haven Prime is home to millions of innocent beings. Surely the Carathian Empire, with its proud military traditions, would not make war on farmers and children. Vextor's compound eyes focused on her. Thousands of facets creating a kaleidoscope of reflected light. We make war on territory, Ambassador. If farmers and children stand in our way, they should have chosen stronger protectors. Perhaps you humans, with your 300 converted cargo ships, would like to stop us? The mockery in his voice was unmistakable. Several delegates made sounds of uncomfortable amusement. The idea of humanity's tiny fleet standing against the Carathian Armada was absurd. Sarah sat back down, her face unreadable. We will explore all diplomatic options. Yes, Vextor said, turning to leave. You do that. Talk to each other. Form committees. Write strongly worded declarations. Meanwhile, the Carathian Empire will act. He paused at the chamber's exit, his massive form silhouetted against the doorway. You have 30 rotations. Use them wisely. After the Carathians departed, the assembly erupted in heated debate. Some called for immediate military response, others for economic sanctions. The Saurian delegate suggested that perhaps it was time to accept Carathian dominance in the outer sectors. They were, after all, the strongest military power in known space. Sarah listened to it all in silence. When the session finally ended, she and Torres made their way back to the human quarters. Ambassador, Torres said once they were alone, we can't let them take Haven Prime. 3 million humans live there. Sarah moved to the window, gazing out at the stars. James, what do you know about Protocol Omega? Torres frowned. Only that it's classified beyond my clearance level. Some kind of emergency defensive measure from the early days of human space exploration. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. It's not defensive, James. And it's time Earth knew that our peaceful facade is about to end. She turned to face him, and Torres was startled to see something in her eyes he'd never noticed before. Something hard and dangerous. Send a priority message to Earth Command. Tell them Sarah Mitchell authorizes Protocol Omega activation. Authentication code, Damocles 77 Alpha. Torres's hands hesitated over his communication device. Ambassador, what exactly is Protocol Omega? Sarah looked back at the stars. It's the reason we chose peace, James. Because we know what we're capable of when we choose war. The Carathians are about to learn why humanity spent the last 200 years trying so desperately to avoid conflict. 29 rotations later, the Carathian invasion fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Haven Prime system. 400 warships, each bristling with weapons arranged in perfect formation. It was a display of power meant to inspire terror and immediate surrender. High Commander Vextor stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Extinction's Edge, watching as his fleet prepared for the traditional pre-battle ceremony. In Carathian warfare, there were rules and rituals. The defending fleet would emerge, forces would be displayed, and then combat would commence in organized waves. It was civilized, structured, honorable. Sensors indicate minimal defensive presence, his tactical officer reported. 12 patrol vessels of various species, 30 converted civilian ships, and 3 human cargo haulers with retrofitted weapons. They're broadcasting requests for negotiation. Vextor clicked his mandibles in satisfaction. As expected, begin the bombardment countdown. Target their orbital infrastructure first, then military installations. Give civilians time to reach shelters. We are conquerors, not barbarians, but something was wrong. The human cargo haulers were moving, not away from the Carathian fleet, but perpendicular to it, taking positions at seemingly random points in space. High Commander. The sensor officer's voice carried confusion. We're detecting an unusual energy signature from the human vessels. Before Vextor could respond, space itself seemed to ripple. Where there had been empty voids, suddenly there were ships. Not 3, not 300, but thousands. They emerged from some kind of advanced cloaking field the Carathians had never seen before. Each human vessel painted matte black. barely visible against the stars except for the weapon systems that now glowed with barely contained energy. The human fleet didn't arrange itself in neat battle lines. It formed a sphere, completely encompassing the Carathian Armada. These weren't converted cargo haulers. These were purpose-built warships, sleek and angular, designed for exactly one thing. A communication channel opened and Sarah Mitchell's face appeared on the main screen. She was no longer in her diplomatic attire but wore a black uniform with insignia Vextor didn't recognize. "High Commander Vextor," she said, her voice carrying none of its usual diplomatic softness. "I am Fleet Admiral Sarah Mitchell of the United Earth Strategic Command. You have entered a protected system with hostile intent. You have exactly one opportunity to withdraw." The revelation of War Vextor's compound eyes struggled to process what his sensors were showing him. 4,000 human warships had appeared from nowhere, surrounding his fleet in a perfect sphere. His tactical officer's voice trembled as he reported, "High Commander, we're reading massive energy signatures from all human vessels, weapon types unknown, shield configurations unlike anything in our databases." "This is impossible," Vextor said, his usual confidence wavering. "Your species has 300 ships. Our intelligence confirmed this." Sarah Mitchell's image on the screen showed no emotion. "You saw what we wanted you to see, High Commander. Every species in the galaxy practices war as a ritual, a ceremony with rules and honor. We learned something different from our history. We learned total war, and we learned why it must never be practiced again." Vextor's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation. "You dare threaten the Carathian Empire? We have conquered 40 systems. We have perfected warfare over 10,000 cycles." "No," Sarah replied quietly. "You've perfected combat. There's a difference." She paused, her eyes hardening. 22 hours ago, you received a message from the Assembly requesting your withdrawal. You ignored it. 15 hours ago, a delegation of refugees from Haven Prime asked for mercy. You denied it. 8 hours ago, I personally sent you a communication offering to negotiate a peaceful solution. You laughed. These were your opportunities for honor, High Commander. Now you face something else. The sphere of human ships began to contract slowly, their formation perfect despite the vast number of vessels. Vextor's tactical officer reported with growing panic. "High Commander, their weapons are charging in sequence, energy output exceeding anything in our records. If they fire, they won't fire." Vextor interrupted, though his certainty was crumbling. "This is a bluff. No species would dare attack a Carathian battle fleet. Open fire, all vessels, maximum spread." The Carathian fleet's weapons erupted in a coordinated barrage, thousands of energy beams and missiles streaking toward the human vessels. What happened next would be recorded in history as the moment the galaxy's understanding of humanity changed forever. The human ships didn't dodge or raise shields in any conventional sense. Instead, space around them seemed to bend. The Carathian weapons simply disappeared into fold of twisted space-time, emerging moments later heading back toward their origin points. Half the Carathian fleet's own weapons struck their own shields before they could react. Sarah's voice remained calm over the chaos. "That was quantum reflection, High Commander, one of the gentler technologies we developed during our century of hidden preparation. Would you like to see the others?" Vextor watched in horror as his proud fleet struggled against their own reflected weapons. Impossible. No species hides such advancement. The galactic community would know. Sarah's expression grew sad. "High Commander, has it ever occurred to you why a species that achieved spaceflight would take 200 cycles to develop FTL travel? We didn't delay because we were slow. We delayed because we were careful. We studied every species in the galaxy. We learned your strengths, your weaknesses, your philosophies of war, and we prepared." A new image appeared on the screen, replacing Sarah's face. It showed Earth, but not as the peaceful blue and green world the galaxy knew. This Earth was surrounded by massive orbital installations, construction yards that dwarfed anything the Carathians had built. Fleets of black ships moved in perfect coordination through training exercises. For the first 50 years after first contact, the image shifted to show Mars. "We told you we were terraforming Mars for agriculture." Another shift showed the red planet covered in vast military installations. "We were building the largest military complex in human history. When you mocked our 300 ships." Another image of Jupiter's moons, all converted into shipyards. "You never asked why a species with our industrial capacity would have so few." The images disappeared, replaced again by Sarah's face. "But the most important thing we hid wasn't our ships or weapons, High Commander. It was our nature. You see, humans didn't achieve spaceflight despite our violent nature. We achieved it because of it. We fought wars so terrible that we nearly destroyed our own world 3 times. We created weapons that could crack continents, diseases that could erase civilizations, and yes, we developed faster-than-light travel not for exploration, but because we needed to ensure our warfare didn't destroy our entire solar system. The human fleet had stopped contracting, holding position in a perfect sphere around the trapped Corathians. Vextor's pride warred with his growing fear. You think to intimidate us with words? The Corathian Empire does not yield. Sarah sighed, and for a moment she looked every one of her 58 years. No, High Commander. I don't think you understand yet. Computer display tactical scenario Carthage 7. Every screen on the Corathian bridge changed to show a simulation. In it, the human fleet opened fire with weapons that didn't just destroy ships, they unraveled them at the molecular level. Vessels didn't explode. They simply ceased to exist. Their atoms scattered into the void. The entire Corathian fleet was eliminated in less than 30 seconds. That's one option, Sarah said quietly. Would you prefer to see scenario Hiroshima 9? That one involves antimatter cascade reactions. Or perhaps Tokyo 3? We developed that one specifically for chitin-based armor like yours. It causes the molecular bonds to vibrate until the entire structure liquefies. Vextor's 6 legs trembled for the first time in his life. You wouldn't. The galactic community would never accept such barbarity. Sarah's eyes flashed with something dangerous. High Commander, the galactic community has spent the last 200 years mocking us for our weakness while you conquered and pillaged under the guise of honorable warfare. Do you really think their opinion matters to us more than the 3 million human lives on Haven Prime? But then her expression softened slightly. However, you're partially correct. We wouldn't use those weapons. Not because of the galactic community, but because we know what it costs to use them. We know the weight of extinction, the burden of genocide. We've carried that knowledge for centuries. It's why we chose peace. It's why we begged, pleaded, and humiliated ourselves in the assembly for 200 years. Because we know what we're capable of. A new communication channel opened, and suddenly, the bridge was filled with transmissions from the Corathian Empire's other fleets across the galaxy. Each one reported the same thing. Human fleets had appeared from nowhere, surrounding Corathian forces in dozens of systems simultaneously. 40,000 ships, Sarah said. That's how many we revealed today. The real number is classified, but I can tell you it's significantly higher. We've been building in secret for 2 centuries, High Commander. Not because we wanted to conquer, but because we knew eventually someone like you would force our hand. Vextor's tactical officer whispered urgently. High Commander, we're receiving reports from Korath Prime. A human fleet of 8,000 ships has appeared in orbit. They're not attacking, just waiting. Sarah nodded. Your homeworld is safe, High Commander. We're not conquerors, but this ends now. The Corathian expansion stops today. You will withdraw from all systems taken in the last 50 cycles. You will pay reparations to displaced populations, and you will never again threaten a world under human protection. And if we refuse? Vextor asked, though his voice had lost all its earlier arrogance. Then we stop pretending to be diplomats and remember that we're the species that split atoms to win wars before we even reached space. We're the ones who created viruses as weapons while you were still using swords. We're the species that looked at the vast, peaceful galaxy and chose to hide our nature because we were terrified of what we might do if we didn't. She leaned forward, and for the first time, Vextor saw humanity's true face. Not weak, not peaceful by nature, but a species that had chosen peace through tremendous effort and self-control. High Commander, we don't practice war like you do because war isn't practice to us. It's not ceremony or ritual or honor. It's the complete and utter destruction of everything in our path until nothing remains but silence. That's why we've spent 200 years avoiding it. Not because we're weak, but because we remember what happens when we're not. The bridge of the extinction's edge fell silent except for the hum of instruments. Vextor's compound eyes surveyed his trapped fleet, the readings showing weapons he couldn't understand, technologies that shouldn't exist, and a number of enemies that defied all intelligence reports. Stand down all weapons, he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. Signal the fleet, we withdraw. Sarah's image nodded once. Wise choice, High Commander. Our ships will escort you to the hyperspace boundary. Once you've left, know that Haven Prime and all worlds within 50 light-years are now under Earth's protective sphere. Any aggression toward them will be considered an act of war against humanity. And I promise you, You don't want to see what that really means. The screen went dark, leaving the Carathians to contemplate their first defeat in 10,000 cycles. But more than that, they contemplated the terrifying revelation that the galaxy's supposed weaklings were perhaps its most dangerous predators, ones who had been desperately trying not to hunt. 3 days later, the Galactic Assembly reconvened. The chamber that had once echoed with mockery of human weakness now sat in stunned silence as Ambassador Sarah Mitchell returned to her seat. She wore her simple diplomatic attire again, her face showing the same calm, peaceful expression they had known for 20 years. The Zalathi representative pulsed with nervous energy. Ambassador Mitchell, Fleet Admiral Mitchell, the Assembly owes humanity an apology. Sarah raised a hand gently. Please, just Ambassador. The rank of Fleet Admiral was temporary, and I've already submitted my resignation from military command. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes or optical organs of each delegation, and no apology is necessary. We chose to appear weak. It was safer for everyone that way. The Saurian delegate, who had laughed the loudest at human weakness, couldn't meet her gaze. Why hide such power? You could have ruled the galaxy. Sarah's expression grew distant, sad. Because we know what ruling through strength costs. On Earth, we have a saying, those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. We learned. We learned from every war, every genocide, every moment when we chose violence over peace, and we decided that the only way to win was not to play. But you did play, the Murtaugh ambassador observed. You built the largest fleet in galactic history. Yes, Sarah agreed. Because we also learned that peace without the ability to enforce it is just delayed defeat. We built our fleets hoping never to reveal them. We developed weapons praying never to use them. Every human child learns about our past wars not as glory but as warnings. They study the bombs that leveled cities, the diseases we created, the way we turned physics itself into a weapon, and they learn why we must never walk that path again. High Commander Vextor entered the chamber. His proud bearing diminished but not broken. The Carathian Empire formally withdraws all claims to disputed territories, he announced. We also acknowledge humanity's protective sphere. Sarah stood and walked to the center of the chamber. High Commander, honored delegates, let me be clear about humanity's position. We revealed our strength not to dominate but to protect. Every world that asks for our protection will receive it. But we will not conquer. We will not expand through force. And we will return to our preferred role as diplomats and peacekeepers. She paused, looking at each delegation. But know this, we are always watching. Always ready. We chose peace not from weakness but from wisdom. We beg you, all of you, to choose the same. Because if you force us to choose war, she didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. The Assembly voted unanimously to accept humanity's proposal for a new peace treaty, one with actual enforcement mechanisms backed by Earth's hidden fleets. As the delegates filed out, many stopped to speak with Sarah, no longer with condescension but with a mixture of respect and fear. Lieutenant Commander Torres waited for her outside the chamber. The ships are already returning to silent running, Ambassador. Within a week it'll be like they never existed. Good, Sarah replied, suddenly looking exhausted. How many did we actually have to reveal? 41,812, Torres replied. Less than a third of our actual force. Sarah nodded slowly. Let's hope we never have to show the rest. The galaxy isn't ready to know that we have weapons that make even today's display look like fireworks. She looked back at the assembly chamber. Perhaps in another 100 years we can actually achieve real peace, the kind where strength isn't necessary. As they walked away, Torres asked quietly, Do you think they understand now? Why we tried so hard to avoid this? Sarah considered the question. No, not fully. They think we're peaceful warriors who choose not to fight. They don't understand that we're not warriors at all. We're survivors of our own nature, desperately trying not to relapse into what we once were. She stopped at a viewport looking out at the stars. We're not a peaceful species, James. We're a species in recovery, and every day we don't go to war is a victory against our own demons. The Haven Prime incident, as it came to be known, marked a turning point in galactic history. The Carathian Empire withdrew to their established borders and never again threatened expansion. Other aggressive species suddenly found diplomatic solutions to their disputes. The galaxy had discovered that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their hidden fleets or advanced weapons. It was their desperate daily choice to be better than their nature demanded. And in that choice, the galaxy found both hope and warning. Hope that even the most violent nature could be overcome, and warning of what waited in the darkness if that choice ever failed. The human fleet returned to the shadows, their black ships vanishing into cloaking fields and hidden bases. Earth's 300 visible vessels resumed their patrols, now treated with a respect that bordered on fear. Diplomats returned to their negotiations, scientists to their research, and traders to their roots. But throughout the galaxy, every species now knew the truth. Humans didn't fear war. They feared themselves. And that fear had kept the galaxy safe from humanity's true nature for 200 years. As Sarah Mitchell returned to Earth for her retirement ceremony, she stood before the Hidden Fleet Command one last time. 40,000 ships arrayed in perfect formation, weapons that could crack worlds, and soldiers trained in warfare methods that would horrify the galaxy.
"Stay hidden," she told them.
"Stay ready, but pray to whatever you believe in that you're never needed. Because the day humanity stops choosing peace is the day the galaxy learns what war really means." The fleet disappeared into the void, returning to their secret bases and hidden shipyards, watching, waiting, hoping they would never be called upon again. Because humanity's greatest victory wasn't conquering the stars. It was conquering themselves, and that victory had to be won again every single day. One choice at a time, one moment of restraint after another, forever balanced on the edge between what they were and what they chose to be.